Our next talk is going to be on opportunities in the life insurance industry, and we're very, very pleased to have Dr. Michael Wetzel as our presenter. Dr. Wetzel is the Chief Medical Director for Equitable Financial. Prior to working at Equitable, Dr. Wetzel was a Vice President Medical Director with Prudential and an Assistant Vice President Associate Medical Director with The Hartford. He is board certified in family medicine and insurance medicine. Dr. Wetzel earned his BS from Penn State, Go Nittany Lions, and his MD from Thomas Jefferson Medical College. So a warm welcome and thanks to Dr. Michael Wetzel.
Thank you. So today I'm going to talk to you about what it's like to be what a career is like as a life insurance medical director. First, I just want to have a disclaimer that I'm going to talk to you about my personal story of what my experience has been as a life insurance medical director. I'm not here as representative of my company. So today I'm going to go through some definitions to get a basic understanding. I'm also going to discuss the process of underwriting. I'm going to contrast clinical versus insurance medicine, explain how to develop your career as a life insurance medical director, spend a little bit of time, what do I do? What is my day like? What can you expect as a life insurance medical director? And if this is something you're interested in, how can you enter the field? A little bit of background about me. I'm a family physician. I was in private practice for 19 years. Now, during this time, I had very limited knowledge of life insurance. I knew I had a group term policy. I knew that if I died, someone was going to get some money. I knew if I left my clinic, I no longer would have that life insurance policy. So my understanding of life insurance was very, very limited. I did not know about the different products, the different policies, the different ratings, depending upon a person's history. I didn't even know medical directors existed. I did not know that life insurance companies had physicians on staff. But one day I got a letter from the Hartford asking if I'd like to be a medical director of a life insurance company. And I thought to myself, I have no idea what that is. But I went in, I was curious about it, if there's something else I could do besides seeing patients, and really was taken aback by how interesting the job sounded. So I made the leap and entered insurance medicine 13 years ago. Well, what is insurance medicine? It's an administrative job working for a life insurance company as an underwriter's consultant. Our main function is to consult for the underwriters. We assess an applicant's expected mortality. We do some review of claims, but the medical director is the authority for medical knowledge for the company. That's our expertise, is medicine. Some medical directors are also involved with disability and long-term care policies, although I have not had that experience. What it is not is denying claims, it's not pre-authorizing treatments, it's not selling insurance products, and it's not utilization review. Well, who are we? Typically, a life insurance medical director is a physician. You need to have a medical license in good standing. You need to maintain your board certification. Most medical directors have a background in primary care, but there are other specialties represented, such as cardiology, pulmonology, and neurology. There are some nurse practitioners, physician assistants, and nurses, but typically it's a physician. And this is a picture of me with the two other medical directors that I work with. What is underwriting? It's a process that involves assessing risk and taking on financial risk in exchange for a fee. And there's multiple components to the underwriting. There's the medical history. What's the person's medical history like? Do they have significant diseases? What is their driving history? Have they had speeding tickets, motor vehicle accidents? Have they had any legal issues, felony convictions? What's their financial situation? Can they afford the policy they're asking for? And can they justify the amount of coverage that they're requesting? Do they live or travel in a foreign country? And if so, what countries are involved in that? And do they have a high-risk occupation? Are they a professional race car driver or a high-risk avocation? Have they recently started hot air ballooning? So these are all the things that an underwriter needs to take into account. The good news is, as a medical director, the only thing we need to worry about is what is the medical. Now, what we're trying to avoid is anti-selection. That's one of our purposes. What is anti-selection? Anti-selection is when an applicant for life insurance knows something relevant to their mortality risk that they do not share with the insurance company. As an extreme, Say a person goes to the physician and the physician diagnoses them with a terminal illness. That person could then go, well, you know what, I should get some life insurance and not share that information with the company. That is anti-selection. That's an extreme example, but that's what we are trying to avoid. There's a big difference between clinical medicine and insurance medicine. We look at things very differently. In clinical medicine, it's an evolution over time. The person comes in, they have some complaints, the physician evaluates them, diagnoses them with something, starts treatment, may order some more tests, and the person comes back, and it's a continuous process. Maybe the person's not getting better, so the physician rethinks what the diagnosis is, orders additional tests, changes the medication. So they have the benefit of time, being able to change their mind, being able to vary things. In insurance medicine, we do not have that. We are given information at this point in time, and that's all we can use to assess the person. We can't order additional tests. We can't send them to a consultant. We have to work with what we are given. We need to understand the risk, make a decision, and put out an offer. Once that offer is accepted by the applicant, it's done. There's no change that can be made to that. If we get more information later on, something changes, we can't take back the policy, we can't change the premium amount, we can't make any changes at all. For instance, in clinical medicine, a person comes in, they have a CAT scan for a reason, and they find an incidental pulmonary nodule. They may be at low risk, so the physician says, come back in a year, let's repeat the CAT scan and see if there's been any change. In insurance medicine, if I'm looking at that CAT scan and I decide to not take action on it, to ignore it, to assume that it's nothing to worry about, and I issue the policy, the next year when that person has the follow-up CAT scan, if the nodule has enlarged, their physician will send them to a cardiothoracic surgeon. Maybe we should biopsy this. We should need to look at this further. My policy's out there. There's nothing I can do with that. I made a decision, and that decision has to stand. What's career development like as a medical director? Well, it's a very, very steep learning curve. It is expected that you do not know what you're doing your first day. I remember my first day as a medical director, coming in, sitting at my desk, turning on my computer, signing on, sitting there thinking, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. The good news is every current medical director has been in that position. So you're not expected to know what to do your first day. This is not typical medicine where you're diagnosing, treating. We are not doing that. We're assessing mortality. So it's on-the-job training. There's no courses to take to prepare you for this. Typically, the way it works is your first day, you will start to get cases. You will review the applications. You'll come up with a decision. You then meet with one of the other medical directors and review the case. And you learn that way. So it's a very steep learning curve. After several months, when you start to show some understanding and competence, the chief medical director may say, you know what, you seem to have a good understanding here. You don't have to send every case to another medical director, as long as the policy is, say, less than $500,000. So if it's less than $500,000 and you're comfortable with it, you can send it directly back to the underwriter without reviewing it. You always can still talk to a medical director if you weren't sure, but if you feel comfortable, go ahead and send it back to the underwriter. Then over time, that policy amount will increase, maybe to $1 million, then $2 million, and eventually you'll get to the point where you do not have any restrictions. That's about a 3 to 5 year process to get to that point. So there's a lot of learning. There are some certifications to get along the way to help your career development, to prove to your company that you are devoted to this. One of them is a diploma, a Board of Insurance Medicine, to become board certified in insurance medicine. There's also the CLU and the FLIMI. These are underwriting certifications, but again, they show that you want to learn more about life insurance, more about the insurance industry than just the medical component. Now, do be aware as a medical director, there's limited opportunity for advancement. I was hired as a medical director. I then was recruited for another company to be the chief medical director. So I'm over the other two medical directors. Years ago, I would say there was no opportunity for advancement, but that I have been proven wrong. I do know of 2 medical directors who have gone on to become the chief underwriter. So I answer to the chief underwriter, and all the underwriters also answer to the chief underwriter. So that's the person over the entire underwriting department. The one person that I know is a good friend of mine. He works for an insurance company, and he was groomed by his company. They had him get an MBA, and he was eventually put into that position. The other person is not your typical physician. He has multiple degrees besides his MD. He's also very much into data analytics, to computers, so he had some unique background. But overall, most medical directors stay as a medical director. So what's my day like? I purposely made the application review a larger font because that is most of what we do. We review the applications, but there's other components to what we do. I may review claims. If a person dies within 2 years of the policy being placed, those policies are reviewed. The person reviewing them may have some questions. Did the underwriter miss something? Was the person dishonest with us? And I may be asked to comment on that. We get involved in projects. Companies right now are really pushing automated programs to increase underwriter efficiency. Underwriters get a lot of information. For medical, they may get 5 years of prescription data. They may get 5 years of lab tests. They get all these different medical records. A lot of this, the companies are trying to automate. So I am involved in projects where I can automate the prescription database, where I only flag certain prescriptions that need to be reviewed. If there's nothing significant on the prescription database, the program says that does not need to go to the underwriter, that can be approved. So these are automated programs that are being developed. There's also guidelines for the underwriters to use to assess people's medical history. What is the risk of these different, I'll say, impairments? We call diseases, syndromes, cancers, all those things we call impairments. And so what are the impairments? Have there been improvements in medicine recently that make the impairment less significant as far as mortality? And then education. So the application review, why would an application come to us? Underwriters can handle most of the information on their own. They are well trained, they have good resources, they can usually just handle the case without involving a medical director. So we do not get involved in every case. Companies will have mandatory requirements. A company may say, if this applicant is over the age of 80, because older people tend to have more complicated medical history, we worry about frailty. Therefore, after the underwriter reviews the case and comes to a decision, send it to the medical director to make sure that the medical director agrees. My company has a face amount restriction. If the policy is for more than $10 million, after the underwriter makes an assessment and makes a decision, it gets sent to a medical director for us to review all the information to make sure the underwriter didn't miss anything and came to a proper conclusion. So each company has its own specifications on the mandatory reviews. There's other reasons an underwriter may send us a case. The impairment may not be in the manual. This manual cannot cover every disease, every thing there is out there. So there may be something that's very rare, and the underwriter needs to get a better understanding. Are there mortality implications with this medical history? The person may have a very complicated medical history, multiple impairments. Underwriters wondering, how are all these things fitting together? Does one thing make another thing worse, or are they similar and we don't need to rate them for both findings? Interpreting tests, there's a lot of MRIs, CAT scans. There's always these funny little things that will be mentioned by the radiologist that the underwriter doesn't know what it means and will send it in. EKGs need to be evaluated. If the underwriter can't interpret an EKG, we'll send it in to have it interpreted by the medical director. There may be conflicting history. The underwriter may get multiple medical records from different physicians, and the medical history, the diagnoses aren't they're not aligning. And so the underwriter may send it in and say, what seems to be the true diagnosis here? Can you help me figure out what is the correct diagnosis? And there's also the unadmitted history. The applicant didn't admit any history, and now the underwriter's coming across some prescriptions. That means that there could be something more going on. What could these prescriptions be used for? What are the resources a medical director uses? Well, there's reinsurance manuals. So I work for a direct insurance company. That means my company sells policies through its advisors and agents directly to applicants. A reinsurance company does not do that. They work with the direct company. If we have a policy, say there's an applicant who is applying for $50 million of life insurance. My company does not want to put $50 million on its books, because if that person dies, that's a huge hit to the bottom line. So my company may say, well, we'll take 20 million and then we'll send 10 million to 3 different reinsurance companies. And those reinsurance companies now back up the direct insurance company. So those reinsurance companies all have manuals that list the impairments and how to rate those. I'll go over what the ratings mean in a few minutes, but how the underwriter should assess those, and also helps us to assess it. There's a Journal of Insurance Medicine. This is a journal of insurance medical directors. So we are the ones who run this journal. This is ours. And these articles in here are specific to mortality. Typical journal articles go through treatment or how to diagnose things, different studies. If there isn't even a mortality study, it'll only go out 5 years. It doesn't go out very long. So the Journal of Insurance Medicine is tapered specifically for life insurance medical directors. These articles are for us. I live in UpToDate. Those unusual things that underwriters come and ask me about, those rare syndromes, those rare diseases, I may not have heard of that since medical school. I go into UpToDate to try to research it and try to figure out, are there mortality implications to what this disease is? PubMed, and we use each other. Me and the 2 other medical directors frequently call each other and run cases by each other, but we're not limited to just talking to people in our company. We're a small group of physicians in the United States, and we work together and we support each other. So I may call a cardiologist at another company. Now that cardiologist can't tell me for proprietary reasons specifically what they would do, but they could educate me on what this is and what the mortality implications are. And this is the best part of the job, in my opinion. That's the education. I love teaching. I always say, as a physician, I like teaching, but my patients were not the best students. They really didn't want to hear the risk of smoking, how they needed to lose weight. Underwriters want to learn. They like the education. They want it. So we do formal presentations. Once a month, we'll meet with underwriters and talk about a topic that they have either requested, they wanted more information on, or we as medical directors may see that the underwriters seem to be struggling with a certain impairment or a certain lab finding or something. We'll spend some time going over that. Companies will hire inexperienced underwriters who have no medical knowledge, and we as medical directors have a curriculum to help educate them in the medical part of underwriting. I do rounds every day. I used to do it when I was in the office. I would, after lunch, walk around to talk to the other underwriters who are in the office, see if they had any questions, were there cases they wanted to discuss. We are now all remote. So every day at 1 o'clock, we have a video conference that's optional for the underwriters to come to. And we'll sit and talk about different cases or different questions that they have. Spontaneous. I am available all the time when I'm at work. So the underwriter may email me, may call me, or may send me a direct message. But I'm not limited to the company. We, again, want to share our knowledge to the industry. So I have gone to industry meetings. AHOU, or AHU, is a national underwriting meeting once a year, and I have gone and presented at that. There's also regional underwriting classes, CUF and Carolina Underwriter Forum, Twin Cities Underwriting Group. I have gone to those and given presentations. And now my company is using me, fortunately, for our employees, not just for the underwriters. During COVID, I was front and center in helping the company handle the going remote, educating the employees. I did a lot of videos. I did a lot of personal meetings, trying to explain what's going on, trying to remove the misinformation that was out there. And my company's also focused on wellness. So I am asked every once in a while to give a talk to the employees on different topics. February is Heart Health Month. So every February I give a talk on heart disease or hypertension. I recently was asked to give a presentation on the new obesity drugs and the risk of obesity. And the fun part is some of the education I do is a component of an underwriter getting promoted. It's very fun to see people advancing their careers in the company. I have taught several groups of underwriters how to interpret a normal EKG, how to tell if EKG is normal or abnormal. If they determine it's normal, they don't need to send it in for review. I've taught them to do that. That's a component of them getting a promotion, having been able to obtain that. So let's talk about a little bit about mortality. What am I talking about here? So let's say we have a 70-year-old male with a NT-proBNP of 150. So NT-proBNP is now being used in insurance medicine on its applicants. Historically, insurance companies have asked applicants to get an EKG. So you apply for insurance, and a nurse goes out to the home, takes blood, gets a urine sample, and also gets an EKG. Well, people don't like that. They don't want to take their shirt off for this stranger. And also the quality tended to be poor. The paramedic would either put the leads on incorrectly, calibrate it incorrectly. We're getting a copy of it, and it's very difficult to see. So companies have moved to just ordering an NT-proBNP on insurance labs. Now, I know that seems very odd because you don't typically get that just routinely on patients, but we do that in insurance medicine because it's been shown to reflect all-cause mortality. And so we've got a 75-year-old man. His BNP was 150. So right here, he is at 1.72 mortality. So 1 is 100% mortality. If you have 100% mortality, you have expected mortality. That's what's expected for someone that age. If you have a greater than 1, then you have increased mortality. So this 75-year-old with a BNP of 150 has a 1.72 or 172% mortality. Now, this is a sample rating table. Every company has their own ratings. This is just an example. But here you can see standards. So this would be that 1 or 100% mortality. Companies will have preferred classes if they think that this person has improved mortality, better than expected mortality. And then these are all the ratings for worse than expected mortality. So you can see here, our person had 1.72 or 72% or about 75% over standard. Therefore, for that finding, the underwriter would put that policy out at a table 3 or a table C. Now, this is a talk I give to underwriters because frequently there's a problem where the person's physician has said everything's okay, whatever the finding was, the lab was, is no big deal. But now the underwriter is assessing it, or the medical director at the life insurance company is saying there is something here. There is increased mortality. There is something negative that we need to take action on. And the applicant doesn't understand that. And the underwriter has to be able to explain that to the applicant's agent. So let's take a look at 2 quick cases. This is a 46-year-old male. On his lab history, we found an albumin of 3.5. Now, as a clinical physician, I don't even think that would have been flagged abnormal on my labs. I would have moved on without even looking at that. But in this case, the case was declined by the underwriter because of that finding. Well, the client replied to the agent saying, wait, I was told all my labs are okay and no further testing was indicated. Clinically, I believe that's correct. Now, when you look at studies, they focus on albumin as a predictor for hospitalized patients, critical care, post-op patients, who's more likely to be rehospitalized. That's what the clinical studies are focused on. Now, there's life insurance articles dating back to 1990 that look at albumin as a predictor of mortality. And here's 2 of those studies. Both of them are in that Journal of Insurance Medicine that I was talking about that show there's increased mortality associated with serum albumin. So here's one of the mortality pages here, and you can see the mortality. Here's expected mortality, the 100%. But look at as the mortality goes up. So once the albumin goes below 4.2, there's significantly increased mortality. And here it is in a graph form. Now this is a little backwards because high albumin is over on the left, low albumin is over on the right. Here's the blue line is the albumin of 4.2, and here's our guy here with his albumin of 3.5. Significant increase in mortality. Now here's a 40-year-old male. Height and weight look good. Blood pressure's good. No past medical history. It hasn't been seen in a physician for greater than 10 years. That's not unusual in a 40-year-old male. We get the insurance labs. His total cholesterol is 120. His LDL is 65, HDL 45, and triglycerides 50. In clinical medicine, you think that's pretty good. This guy's doing well. Well, the underwriter took adverse action for low total cholesterol. And the underwriter then was given a reply from the agent. Mr. Crestor is an active young man. We play tennis every weekend and he does not consume alcohol. He is conscientious about his diet and health. He should get your best rate class due to his low risk for heart disease. Well, let's take a look at some studies. This is a study that shows mortality by cholesterol. Now, this is both genders together, and this is split out by men and women. And you can see here, start at 200, expected mortality of 1. As the cholesterol goes up, no one is surprised, mortality goes up. But look what happens as the cholesterol goes down, how the mortality goes up. This is broken out by age, and this is our guy right here. It's 120. He's between 35 and 44 years of age. He has 2 times mortality for that low cholesterol. And you think that just doesn't make sense. Well, let's look at it a little closer. Here's a graph that shows all-cause mortality. This person just died. Doesn't matter what they died from, they died. As you can see, here's the 100% expected mortality. And as the cholesterol goes up, the mortality goes up. But look at the significant increase in mortality as the cholesterol goes down. Now we'll jump to the third graph. This is cancer mortality. So mortality goes up a little bit as the cholesterol goes up, but goes up significantly as the cholesterol goes down. Now this middle one here is cardiovascular disease. So as expected, the mortality goes up as the cholesterol goes up. And also, as expected, there really isn't significant increase in cardiovascular mortality with low cholesterol. So the agent was right. This person does have low risk cardiovascular disease. But what we care about is all-cause mortality. We pay out the policy no matter what the person dies from. So our focus is on all-cause mortality. And there is increased all-cause mortality when people have low total cholesterol. And I want to stress, this is when a person is not taking a statin. These studies are on people who have low total cholesterol, not treated with a statin or medication. So what to expect as a medical director? Well, it's a good work-life balance. This is me at work. Look at that. Casual. That's not casual Friday. That's casual every day. Working at home. I used to be in the office. After COVID, we went 100% remote, so I now work at home. I work a straight 40-hour work week. I work Monday through Friday. No holidays, weekends, or evenings. I think I've worked 3 Saturdays during my 13 years as a medical director, and those Saturdays I worked was usually 2 to 4 hours, so not a whole day. It was just, there was a lot going on, a lot of business coming in, things need to be taken care of. It's been many years since I've had to do that. What is called? There's no such thing as a medical director. Remote is now common, particularly, so I would have said prior to COVID, if you are an inexperienced medical director coming out of clinical medicine, you would need to be in the office. Most companies all companies were requiring that people with no experience be in the office. Only a seasoned medical director could work from home. It's now much more common. My entire department is fully remote. The 2 medical directors I work with are remote. So companies are more willing now, with the improvement in technology, the screen sharing, the video meetings, to have new inexperienced medical directors work from home. You may be required to come into the office for an orientation to the main office for a few weeks or something, but there's much more opportunities now for new medical directors to work remotely. Well, how about the salary? This is a survey we took of our membership at an annual meeting a few years ago. And I'll go through the breakdown. So here, less than 100,000, this confuses me a little bit. This may be the nurse or nurse practitioner. I'm not sure who is in this, but it was only 2 people. Unfortunately, this is a wide range that the person who created this survey made, so $100,000 to $200,000. But you can see most medical directors are $200,000 to $250,000 or more as a baseline salary. The other thing to keep in mind with this survey is this was of our membership, and our membership includes people brand new to the industry who may be inexperienced, so at a lower salary, all the way to people who may have 20, 30 years of experience. My feeling is that what I'm hearing is a inexperienced medical director would probably start in the high 100s, 185 to 195 as a base salary. Now, there's also the annual bonus that companies will offer, and that's a percentage of your baseline salary. What this is based upon how well did you do? Did you do your job well? Did you do your job exceptionally well? And then how did your company do? We work for financial companies, so how did the stock market do? How did our investments do? What was our claims experience? The company looks at all that at the end of the year and then decides how well to fund the bonus target. And so that's anywhere from 20% to 40% for most medical directors. That is not guaranteed. Again, that depends on how well the company has done. And some companies offer long-term incentives. This is to keep their medical directors. So I have a long-term incentive program. At the end of the year, I am given stock. It is in my name, but I cannot do anything with it. It vests a third every year. So in 1 year, a third will vest, and then I can do something with it. After the second year, the second third will vest. After the third year will vest. So if I would decide to leave my company, I leave all that money behind. Whatever's not vested, I lose. So it would cost me a lot of money to go to another company. So this is a way for companies to keep their medical directors from going to other companies. And then we work for corporations, so it's the typical benefits: health insurance, HSA, FSA, disability insurance, life insurance, and the 401k with a match. Well, this sounds great, you may be thinking. I want part of this. Well, I will warn you right up front, it's very competitive. It is a great career. We tend to not retire because it's a fun job. And so the people tend to stay in this career. There's not a lot of burnout. So how can you get in? Well, learn about the industry and show interest. Understand, because it's competitive and not a lot of jobs become available, you're not going to get a job in 1 to 2 months. This might be a commitment of a few years. So learn about the industry, show interest, try to make yourself stand out, attend industry conferences. There's the American Academy of Insurance Medicine. That's the United States-based group of medical directors. CLIMOA is the Canadian version of AIM. There's the Midwest Medical Directors Association meeting once a year. That's a smaller, more intimate meeting, usually 1 day. There's less people there, so it's easier to network. And then the American Council of Life Insurance. So that looks more at regulatory issues with life insurance. There's the basic mortality methodology course. I said there's not really courses to take to prepare yourself for this job, but this is a course I would recommend taking to show that you truly have a commitment to getting into the industry. So this is a course that's offered at the beginning of our annual AIM meeting. AIM has an annual meeting every year. The day before the regular meeting starts, there's a mortality course. Now, this is basically not what we do every day. So if you go take this course and think, I don't want to do this as a job, that is not what we do. The purpose of the course is to understand how those mortality tables that I showed earlier with the NT-proBNP, how those are created, how those are derived. That is not what a medical director does every day, but it's important to understand the history behind that and the science behind it. So that's what the course will help you understand. And again, if you take and pass that course, there's a test, then when you apply for a job, you're showing that you really, truly are committed to this and not just trying to find a job. Network. When you go to those meetings, really network, get to know people. Brush up your LinkedIn profile. Recruiters use LinkedIn to find people. Company I worked for, we had an internal recruiter who found an inexperienced medical director straight out of practice to become a medical director. So really buff up your LinkedIn profile. I also would start to follow AIM, we have our own profile on LinkedIn. So follow AIM. And when you meet medical directors at these industry meetings, follow them on LinkedIn also. So the recruiter can see that this person seems to be involved with insurance medicine, seems to have an interest in insurance medicine. Therefore, I will contact them to see if they're interested in this job that I have available. If you join AIM, there's a mentorship program. So you will be hooked up with a medical director who has experience and will help you get a better understanding of what we do, and will also help you navigate the interviewing, the finding job availability. I've had several mentees. I had one mentee when I was in the office come in and spend a day with me, working with me, going to meetings with me. I've had other mentees where I've screen shared for about an hour or so, just showing them really what my day is like. How do I assess these cases? So the mentorship program is available. Now, I've talked about AIM, or the American Academy of Insurance Medicine. So we're one of the oldest specialty organizations in the United States. We provide educational and professional support for members. So we all work together. Although we work for different companies, we all share our knowledge. At our annual meetings, we have medical directors lecturing us. So we want to share our knowledge. We want to promote our industry. We are recognized by AMA, and we hold a seat in the House of Delegates. What we offer are the Journal of Insurance Medicine. So that's available, has all those articles. Then there's also our website, which has a lot of information on it. We have an annual meeting, usually in the fall. This year it's a triennial meeting. So every 3 years is a triennial meeting. It's a little different than our typical annual meeting. The typical annual meeting is just platform presentations, just the typical what you expect, a lecture, 1 hour lecture, 1 hour lecture, 1 hour lecture. The triennial is focused more on newer medical directors with less experience. And it's actually a fun meeting where you not only have just lectures, but you also break out into small groups and discuss cases together and learn how to review those cases, how to assess the cases, and how to come to decisions on what to do with those. So those are fun meetings. And that is this year's annual meeting in San Diego, is the triennial. AIM also offers basic and advanced mortality courses. And the other thing at our annual meeting, the first afternoon, there is an introduction to insurance medicine, given a lot more in depth than what I'm doing right here on what it's like to be an insurance medical director. So in summary, what are the pros? It's a mentally stimulating job. I feel much more medically knowledgeable now than when I was in practice, because I have time to read about things. When the underwriters come at me with that disease or impairment that I haven't heard of, or that I haven't heard of in years, I can actually sit down for half an hour to an hour and read about it. I couldn't do that in practice. I comment often, I feel like I'm back in medical school without the tests, and I'm getting paid to do it. There's good camaraderie. We are all good friends. The two people I work with, we've become very, very close friends. But even the medical directors of other companies, because there's not a lot of us, we are good friends. We work together. We know each other very well. A very relaxed work environment. There's no practice concern, and it's a very, very good lifestyle. What are the cons? Lots of autonomy. As a practicing physician, when you write an order, it gets done. When you tell a nurse to do something, it gets done. I don't make decisions. The underwriter owns the case. They can take the information I give them and use it or not use it. It is their case. I do not have any control. I only advise. I only consult. I'm okay with that. I'm employed. As a practicing physician, I was an owner of my clinic. I was guaranteed a job unless I did something really, really inappropriate. Now, I could lose my job. When I joined Hartford 6 months after I joined and left clinical medicine, Hartford announced it was selling off its life insurance business. So for 2 years while that process was being done, I didn't know what to expect. I could have lost my job. It worked out well in that we were purchased by Prudential, which was a mile away. So I just had to drive a little different direction to get to work. So for me, it worked out well. But I could have lost my job. And also there's little opportunity for advancement. But overall, I love this career. I say that decision I made 13 years ago to go into insurance medicine was one of the best decisions that I have ever made. So I thank you for your time, and I thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wetzel. Wonderful talk. I'm going to get my cholesterol up. Just some questions, if you don't mind indulging me, doctor. Fantastic talk. Networking, obviously very important when you're looking for a job. Are there any groups in LinkedIn that you would recommend for doctors interested in insurance medicine?
Yeah, I definitely would follow AIM and their profile. And when they share things, I would look at who's sharing. I'd look at the other medical directors, and I would follow them also. That's the big thing that I would do on LinkedIn. And also for networking, if you go to an industry meeting, usually the first night there's a welcome reception. And they'll start the reception for new members or for people who are attending the meeting for the first time about a half hour early. I would definitely take advantage of that. That is for new people to meet more experienced medical directors. So I would definitely take advantage of that and network on that. Really get out there, really meet people, talk to people. We're all very friendly. We're all very happy. We remember what it was like to be new. And so we're very aware of that.
So you mentioned working on your LinkedIn profile. Any specific suggestions for the headline? These are for new people that are looking to get into the job. Somebody's a clinician like you were. Any suggestions on how to optimize that to make that stand out for either a recruiter or if you're applying for a job saying this person is serious? Any suggestions on that, doctor?
Yeah, it's a little tricky, particularly if you are, currently working. You don't want people to know that you're thinking of changing careers, and so that'd be the risk of being too obvious with it. So I think it's more of linking to people, following people, resharing posts that AIM does or that other medical directors do. That won't be so obvious to people that means you're looking for a job unless it's a recruiter. So if your friends see that, they're not going to think much about it. But it will really set off a recruiter that this person is actively involved in insurance medicine. They're in clinical medicine. Therefore, I would contact them to see if they're interested in a job.
Thank you, doctor. Now, job postings. Does AIM have a job board?
Thank you for reminding me of that. Yes. Now, there's certain parts of the AIM website that are only available to members, but we do have a public posting of job opportunities. So companies will post on the AIM website jobs. That is not restricted to members. Anyone can see that. Now, the other thing, thank you for reminding me about this. The other thing that you can do on the AIM website is you can post your CV or your resume. Now, that is restricted to only members. So you don't need to worry that someone's going to stumble across it that you work with. Only AIM members have access to that. So if you're a member, you can submit your CV. That'll get posted. If a company is looking for a medical director, they will use that as a resource.
Do the HR people, whoever the hiring powers to be, when they want to hire a new medical director, do they go to the existing medical directors and say, hey, do you have anybody that you would suggest?
Absolutely. Yes. So there's different components to it depending upon what they're looking for. So if a company is looking for an experienced medical director, that's definitely what they're going to do. So we had a job opening a few years ago. I knew right who I wanted to hire. And so I was in charge of that. I didn't rely on HR. I went and talked to that person. She was interested, and we fortunately were able to hire her. So, but for the inexperienced, that's where the recruiter is really going to use that LinkedIn profile. But that's also with the mentorship program, because we now know that there's people who are actively interested as mentees. And so we as medical directors will talk to each other about, do you know anyone right now who would be a good fit? And so that would be another way to do that.
And you got a letter from Hartford where they kind of recruited you through the mail. Do you have any sense as to why you stood out to them, or was this like a mass mailing type thing?
I could never get a clear answer from the person who hired me. I think it was aimed at me. I was a little different in that I spent an afternoon a week working for my state's medical board as a consultant. And so what I did every one afternoon a week was I would review complaints about physicians, and I'd also review malpractice cases that had been settled or paid. And so it involved me reviewing a lot of medical records. It involved me coming to conclusion, and involved me making a recommendation to the board. And I had to do that in layman's terms because they were not medical professionals. And so that's a lot of what I do. And so I've always been suspicious that someone knew that I was doing that as a consultant and thought that that would be a good fit. And that's why they sent the letter to me. I was not aware that there was a mass mailing.
When you say it was aimed at you, I don't know if that was an intentional pun. All right. You said that this is a small community. Everything's relative, of course, doctor. Are we talking there's 200 doctors that do this, 1,000 doctors that do this, 2,500? Any sense as to the size of the industry?
It would be in the 100s. So our annual meeting, now not all medical directors attend every meeting because, like for instance, we have 3 medical directors here at my company. We all 3 can't go because then there's no one working in the office. But typically the attendance at our annual meetings are in the 120 to 150, but that's also drawing international. We have people from all over the world who come to our annual meeting. But I'd say overall, the number of medical directors would be below 200.
How many life insurance companies are there, do you know?
That I don't know, more than I thought.
Okay, because the last I heard was wasn't 500. You figured each would have at least one unless they're outsourcing.
And not all life insurance companies will have a full-time medical director. If they're a smaller company, they may just have a medical director as a consultant that works 1 day a week.
You took that question right out of my mouth. Thank you so much.
Yep.
And I know, well, let me ask you, you mentioned that sometimes medical directors in life insurance deal with long-term care. What issue would they be asked there?
So they would be asked to, I do some long-term care, but mine is a rider on the life insurance policy. It's not a standalone policy. So if you have a standalone policy unrelated to life insurance, that's what I do not do. So the medical director is now assessing this differently because they're not worried about mortality. They're worried about what's the risk of this person becoming disabled and requiring long-term care. And the same thing with the disability. So the mindset is different. You know, I focus strictly on mortality. When you work with the disability and long-term care, now you focus more on not so much mortality, but what's the risk of disability? This person, do they have MS? Were they at risk of disability, rheumatoid arthritis? So they're focused more on those types of things.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wetzel. Now, when you work in the health insurance industry, a lot of times, and even the disability industry, a lot of times the doctors that are medical directors there have to do peer-to-peers and talk to the providers of the actual insured person. Do you ever have to do that in this industry? And do you ever have to talk to the actual applicant themselves to get information and clarification?
I've never talked to an applicant. It's been very rare. I have talked to the applicant's physician. We try to avoid that because it really needs to be the underwriter's case. So typically what I'll do is spend some time with the underwriter, helping to explain why we're taking the action that we're taking and make sure they have a good understanding so they can accurately relay that information to the agent who then can explain it to the applicant. But it's been pretty rare. And when I have done it, it's gone really, really well. Again, because I could explain to the clinical physician why I'm doing what I'm doing and make them understand that, yes, as a practicing physician, I would have done exactly what you're doing. I would have told my patient exactly what you're telling your patient. But I'm looking at this from a different view, and this is how I'm approaching it. And every time I've had that conversation, it's gone very well, and the physician has a better understanding of why I'm recommending what I'm recommending.
And what impresses you in an interview with a young, not to say young, but a new doctor trying to get into this field? Anything in particular, Dr. Wetzel?
Yeah, you really want to explain why you have an interest in it. Also, be very careful. You don't want to act like you're trying to get away from something or run from something. So you don't want to say, you know, I can't stand practicing medicine anymore. I'm so frustrated. I'm so burnt out. That is not what you want to do. It may be what you're thinking and it may be what you're feeling, but you really want to demonstrate that this really sounds like an interesting career, because it is, a fun career, because it is. So you want to really present that this is something you've heard about, it's something you're excited about, and it's something you're committed to, and that you understand that there's going to be a time period before you are up and running, and you're okay with that, but that it just sounds like a new challenge. It's a great challenge, and it's a fun job, and that's really what you want to come across, is that this is what you've heard, and this is why you're excited about it.
And the last question, can you still practice very part-time, 1/2 shift a month or something like that? And is it your experience that an insurance company would generally encourage that or discourage that?
That's a great question. Once I left practice, I was 100% out of practice. Some companies will have a person work a half a day a week. There's a lot of variability. I do know some medical directors who just wanted to keep their feet wet, to kind of keep in the practice and not lose their skills. So they may volunteer at a clinic. I know one medical director he went back to his clinic an afternoon a month just to stay involved. So there's a lot of variability, and companies may be open to the different ways of doing that. Some companies encourage it. There's a lot of variation in that. Now, I know some physicians have been afraid to take the leap. Again, I took the leap. I went 100% all in. Some physicians are not really sure they want to do that and may want to see what this is like before they do that. So they may start part-time as a medical director and continue part-time as a practicing physician.
I was going to ask this question, but I won't because I already know the answer, but I'll ask it anyhow. Do you have any regrets, Dr. Wetzel?
Not one. This is one of the best decisions I've ever made. I have so much fun. It's the people I work with are fun. Not only the medical directors, but the underwriters. It's a very pleasant experience. I'm sitting here in my house. It's great.
Thank you very, very much for your time. Great talk. Thanks again.
Thank you.